The homework problem for the two-way ANOVA lesson was given as in the Whit and Whit book, problem 18.10. That's on page 419 of the 9th edition, which I think most everyone has. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at that. And if you look at the bottom half of the page, what we're doing, we're measuring days of discomfort according to two different categories. And those two different categories are the two independent variables. So we're classifying them, the number of days of discomfort, by how much vitamin C they've had, as well as how much sauna exposure. So we want to see if there seems to be any difference based on either or both of those two variables. So the way, and I'm just going to start this brand new here, the way we're going to enter the data is that we first of all go to variable views and we write down the three things we said. And one of them we mentioned was sauna exposure. I'm going to write sauna exposure. I'm going to write vitamin C. You can spell it correctly once in a while. Again, no spaces or it will yell at you. And then days of discomfort. You can just put days or whatever. I'm going to put days of discomfort. I'm not going to mess with any of the default values or options they already have selected. I'm just going to go with that. So when I click on data view, those three things are going to become column headings. And if you like, you can stretch those out a little bit to where it gets the names on the same line. So I'm going to fill out the days of discomfort first, and you can do this in any order you want to. The first line, the first row, is going to be for that first person that has 6 days. See the main body of the table? That 6 is the first entry in the main body in the upper left. 6 days of discomfort. And let me go ahead and put the other information down here for this one too, and we'll decide what order we want to put everything in. And that person had no sauna exposure and no vitamin C. Couldn't put the others in the same category. We also had a person who had 4 days of discomfort, also with no sauna exposure and no vitamin C. And there was a third person who had 5 days of discomfort with no exposure to either of the other two as well. Person under him has also a 5. See that first 5 in the second, third going down the left column? That person had half-hour sauna exposure and no vitamin C. So see how that person is in a different category because the other two variables are different. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all the days in now, then we'll go back and pick those things in as we like. So 5, 4, 3, 4, and tell me when I'm doing this wrong. Now I'm going to go to the second column, which is 5, 3, and 3. That's the column where the people had 500 milligrams of vitamin C and no sauna exposure. Then underneath that, 4, 3, and 2. 2 and 3. People that had 1,000 milligrams, we've got 4, 2, and 3. 3, 3, 2, 2. People had 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C. 2, 3, 2. 2, 1, 2. Finally, 1, 2, 1. So that gives the days of discomfort for everyone in there. We've got 36 of them. All the way back up. And the next group, again, for that 5, 4, and 5, we've already entered for the first 5. But those people all had half-hour sauna exposure and no vitamin C. And my 4, 3, and 4, again, it's on the left column at the very bottom. 4, 3, and 4, they had full hour sauna exposure 500 vitamin C. No. Correct. I said the correct one. They still had no vitamin C. Is that right for the first column? I see one nod. Anybody online give me a high five or amen or heads up or any other mistakes I haven't caught myself just yet? I think I've got everybody entered in correctly. So I've got how much sun exposure everybody has individually, how much vitamin C, and then how many days each individual has of discomfort. All my data, and I believe the correct form. And I'm told it looks erect. The way I spell. Just kidding, Robert. So if I do the analysis, I'm going to go to Analyze. Where do I go now? It says with a hint, General Linear Model, Univariate, and that'll open up a box or window with some boxes to be filled in. What's my dependent variable? Sun exposure. I don't know why I did that. My dependent variable is days of discomfort. The other two variables are the independent variables, or the fixed factors, sun exposure and vitamin C. That I want to go to options. I want sun exposure. I want vitamin C. Those are my main effects, but we're also concerned with the interaction. Maybe it doesn't work consistently for sun exposure, consistently for vitamin C. Maybe one depends a little bit on the other. That's the interaction. And I want to look at descriptive statistics, effect size, and again, homogeneity test will come into play later. And don't think I want anything else there. We like our significance level to 0.05, which it defaults to anyway, so we're glad to click OK. And then I'm going to click OK to get an output window. My output window, let me give myself enough room, as much room as I can here. The first line I want to look at is the interaction line right here. Significance is 0.956, indicating there's no significance for the interaction, which means we don't have to do that messy follow-up stuff. It doesn't behave differently when you combine them together. But if I look at the significance or the p-values for the main effects, the sauna exposure and the vitamin C, they are both significant. So it does seem to matter how much sauna exposure you get, how much vitamin C exposure you get. So we're off the hook for the interaction, but for the main effects, for both main effects for sauna, I'm looking at degrees of freedom of 3 and 24. Somewhere I'm going to want to write F of 3 and 24 degrees of freedom. Why do you suppose there's 3 for the first one? I'm sorry, there's 2 for the first one. I circled the wrong one. Because there are three different conditions, so 3 minus 1 is the 2. There are 4 levels of vitamin C they can get, so 4 minus 1 is 3. So for the sauna, should be that the F value for 2 and 24 degrees of freedom is equal to 3.957, comes from here, and my p-value is 0.033, which means I'm still going to have to do some follow-up stuff. And just for fun, my effect size eta squared is 0.248, and that indicates, was that medium effect size? I don't remember my numbers in there. Between small and medium, not quite the medium, then that sounds right. Okay. So squared is 0.248, which indicates a small to medium effect size. For the vitamin C, I'm going to write somewhere F of 3, we said why 3 a minute ago, 3 and 24 degrees of freedom. That F value is equal to 17.551. The p-value listed is 0, but again, remember, we can't say p is 0. We have to say p is less than 0.001 because, again, that's the probability of doing something wrong. There's never a 0 probability of doing something wrong. It can be very small. And that's as small as we can say it is with 3 different digits. And then our effect size there, eta squared, is 0.687. Is that a large effect size? Again, I'm not looking at my numbers offhand. So I've got to do follow-up analysis for both sauna and for vitamin C, but thankfully I don't have to do anything with the interaction. So I'm going to go back to my analysis. Everything's going to be exactly where I left it, but this time I'm going to need to click Post-hoc. And I want Post-hoc, as we said, for both of them. Because sauna exposure is significant, vitamin C is also significant because, again, in the SIG column, we had less than a 0.05. We're going to use the Tukey analysis. Continue. I'm going to hit OK and get more to my output window, and I'm going to look at the pairwise comparisons for the multiple comparisons. Okay, I've got one for vitamin C. Well, I've got one for sauna first of all. So sauna, Is there a difference between 0 and half, 0 and 0.5, 0 and 1, and 0.5 and 1? So I'm going to look at this column for those three lines I just lined out, and the answer for the first one is no. There's no significant difference between no sonic exposure at all and was it half an hour? Half an hour a day, whatever they called it. Yeah, half an hour of exposure. So no difference. How about between 0 and a full hour? Yes, because 0.025 is less than 0.05. The difference between half an hour and an hour, my significant level is 0.421. That's not less than 0.05, so no. So the only significant difference I have is between 0 and 1 hour. Now, if I scroll back up, I'm going to lose my brilliant drawing here. But what were the means for 0 and 1 for sonic exposure? So because that'll tell us, okay, if there's a difference, that's fine. But when there's a difference, you need to tell which one is significantly higher than the other. And I suspect, if I remember this correctly, the number of days of discomfort for 0 hours is significantly higher than the number of days of discomfort for 1 hour. So roll that back up and see if we're through with this. Difference between 0 and 1. Here is my mean for none. Those people were average, were sick, or had 3.5 days of discomfort on average. People who had an hour of sonic exposure had 2.583 average days of discomfort. So yeah, they tend to have more discomfort when they don't have any sonic exposure than when they have an hour of sonic exposure. That's the only significant difference. Okay. Now let's go back and look at the vitamin C. So I had 4 levels of vitamin C, so I want to compare between 0 and 500, 0 and 1,000, 0 and 1,500. I don't need to compare between 500 and 0 because I've already got 0 and 500 right here, so I don't need that one. But I need between 500 and 1,000 and 500 and 1,500. And finally, I need, the only one left I have to compare is between 1,000 and 1,500. So I'm going to look at the significant column. It's going to give me my p-values. Again, the probability of saying there's not a significant difference, the probability of being wrong if you say there is. I'm looking for numbers that are less than 0.05. I get this one, this one, this one. Not worried about that one. Not that one, this one, and not that one. So there's a significant difference between no vitamin C and every other level of vitamin C. Those are all 3 right here. And finally, there's a significant difference between 500 and 1,500. So just kind of in plain English, it seems to matter a lot whether you get some vitamin C or not. It doesn't matter quite as much how much you get. The significant difference between 0 and every other level and between 500 and 1,500 levels. Questions about that homework problem? All equally confused and unhappy. Playing the home version of the game, okay?